All right, welcome in. I'm the Kodiak, and today I'm here to talk about every owner of every NFL team, and I'm going to be ranking them according to 1 through 31. The Packers are unranked because they don't have an owner, and before I begin, I just want to say a couple things. This is definitely not going to be a perfect list because ultimately, as somebody who's just watching from the sidelines and hearing about or going about how I hear about these people and not knowing how much influence they actually have in the building. I mean, I know that's the entire NFL to begin with, but at the same time, I don't know, we just have to go on primarily with what we're going off of in this list. We have to go off of what we know about them and what's public and some of the things. But yeah, so let's start out with the Green Bay Packers. They don't have an owner. Like, I know they do, but it's a publicly traded team. You can buy a stock. I think it's about $250, and it's been called the worst stock in America. And I think part of that is because you don't really get anything from actually owning the team. In particular, you get like a hat maybe, and then a piece of paper that you put on your wall. But I will not be ranking the board of directors. I think I know Murphy is like their president or whatever, but still feels disingenuous considering that this team actually doesn't have an owner. But good organization. I will say that they definitely have it figured out, and you could definitely do worse with your organization being run by a board of directors than the absolute monarchy that some of these guys run. Now, starting off with the actual owners themselves, let's go with David Tepper. And I think that Tepper buying Carolina was one of the worst things to ever happen to the Panthers. And it's just been an absolute disaster ever since he got hired in Carolina. Pretty much everything he's done since he became the owner of the Carolina Panthers has been an absolute joke. They've ran through head coaches and GMs like no one's business, and everybody he employed has needed to be fired at some point. And is he willing to spend? Sure, but he's willing to do it in stupid ways. Like, they gave Matt Rule a huge contract just so he wouldn't even interview with other teams. And watching him on All or Nothing, very good series if you guys haven't seen it, it's clear that he wants the Panthers to do well. It's clear that he's very much a fan of what the Panthers offer. He's a Panthers fan just like any other person, because I remember them in week 1 in 2018. I remember him just being out there like talking to fans or whatever and like tailgating with them, and that was kind of cool to see. But this guy has no idea how to run an NFL team. Unfortunately, I do think he's running this team into the ground, and I think Carolina just ultimately deserves better. So number 30, we're going to go with Michael Bidwill. And honestly, if not for Tepper, I think Bidwill would be primarily in the spotlight as one of the worst owners ever. And as far as what's happening on the football side of things right now, so they're recovering from the Keim and Cliff Kingsbury disaster in a very exciting way because Monty Ossenfort has built this team, and they are on the up and up. Like, make no mistake about it, this team is going to be very, very good in the near future. But one of the things that I really stuck out to me while I was looking at all these owners' backgrounds is that, one, he's one of the only handful of owners that has an F NFLPA grade. And two, they are still an organization that charges their players for food. So that says a lot about Bidwill as a whole. The fact that they're probably raking in I don't know how many millions of dollars a year, and the fact that they still can't provide that as a luxury to their players, especially practice squad guys, because not every, I know that those guys are making a decent chunk of change, don't get me wrong, but when you're following an NFL eating routine, I think that all that should be complimentary, especially if you're spending so much time at the facility, which happens to be the case for NFL players. They could be there from 12, 13 hours a day. So, Bidwill, he's just not doing a good job running the team, unfortunately, and it really shows with the winning percentage as the owner since he's taken over. Now, number 29, we have Dean Spanos, and he has made a reputation of being relentlessly cheap. But I'm pretty indifferent about the move to LA because, one, you had a chance to get out of San Diego, and make no mistake about it, from a business perspective, yes, it sucks as a Chargers fan. The NFL team, an NFL team in your city is a huge privilege. A sports team in your city in general is just a privilege, and I think a lot of people can take it for granted until this relocation stuff comes up. But make no mistake about it, the Chargers were not that big of a force in San Diego. Like, I know a handful of Chargers fans, but none of them are from San Diego. But they also didn't really have an identity as far as, like, being the locals team. Like, yes, they were the locals team, don't get me wrong, but I'm pretty sure most of the people who actually lived in San Diego were fans of the Raiders, fans of the Steelers, Packers, 49ers, whoever. And they moved to LA and they pay $1 in rent each year. So Spanos is relentlessly cheap, and he should be held accountable for the way he screwed the city of San Diego. But regardless, as far as the football side of things, they are getting better, but unfortunately he seems to not take the players' side in big contract extensions, and yeah, so he's still a bad owner. Like I said, I'm indifferent about the LA move because ultimately I do think it was good for the sport of football. But yeah, for the people of San Diego, it really sucks. And this guy, yeah, I don't have a good feeling about him. 28, Jimmy Haslam. So I think one thing that has completely derailed his reputation is giving Deshaun Watson a 5-year, $250 million fully guaranteed contract while he was in the middle of his legal situation figured out. If it had been, different and he had been found completely innocent, then this would be one thing. But he gave a market-setting, fully guaranteed contract to Deshaun during that time period. And the fact that Deshaun was able to get that and a lot of other QBs probably won't be able to get what they deserve, it just says a lot about Haslam and what he has created with the Cleveland Browns. He isn't like that hated by his own people. Like, the NFLPA gave him a B, but at the same time, this team has been really bad since he took over. Granted, they've turned it around since 2018. They have turned it around, and they're no longer like the 0-16 0-16, yeah, because there were 16 games at the time. Like 1-15 version of the Cleveland Browns. So from football side, this is purely getting better. But from a business side, like, I'm just really not a fan of how he is running this team in general. Now, 27, John Mara. Make no mistake about it, I have been saying it all offseason on this channel. This is the NFL's new version of the Cleveland Browns, because since 2017, they have the worst record in the league, and I'm pretty sure the only team that even comes close to how bad they've been over that time period is the team they share a stadium with. Is he willing to spend? I mean, we got to give him some props, because MetLife Stadium at the time was a very, very expensive stadium, and it required no public funding, which is huge, especially because I'm sure that the city of New York would have loved to have shelled out, or New Jersey would have loved to have shelled out some tax money for that stadium. But him and Woody Johnson went 50-50 on it. But what I will say is that you built the stadium, and why is there no grass? Like, why are you still playing on that bad turf? And I'm actually pretty excited that they got the World Cup final in 2026, because FIFA, given that global organizations when it comes to sports are insanely corrupt, like FIFA, the Olympics, NCAA, they are all extremely corrupt, even though I know NCAA is not a global organization, but it's very corrupt. But I'm actually very, very excited that they got the World Cup final, because it's going to make the Jets and Giants have to pay for actual playing standards. And this field wipes other teams' rosters yearly, so it's just mind-boggling that they haven't figured it out yet. But he is in and over his head when it comes to football operations. He keeps people around way too long. Gettleman should have been here a lot shorter than he actually was. He okayed the benching of Eli Manning for Tyrod Taylor. NFLPA grade is pretty good, but I'm not a fan. 26, Mike Brown. So the Bengals, they're finally perennial contenders again. And unfortunately, I think a lot of this is just due to the fact that this team is undesirable without Joe Burrow. Because Duke Tobin, he has done a lot of really good things as far as personnel. But the Bengals, up until a few years ago, their scouting department was like 3 guys. So the ability to be cheap was actually affecting the team's on-field play. Now, what I will say is that they did build a championship contender in 3 different eras. They built a championship contender with Joe Burrow. They built a championship contender with Andy Dalton. They built a championship contender with Carson Palmer. But at the same time, like, this is a guy who has been notoriously cheap. Like, he's arguably the reason I have the "Are you willing to spend" part of this slideshow. So yeah, Mike Brown, there's a lot of stuff out there showcasing that he's not necessarily a bad human being. He's just semi in over his head. And the reason I say semi is because the Bengals on field are pretty good, but they have Joe Burrow, and it remains to be seen how they are without him. Make no mistake about it, Clark Hunt is not a part of the class of the NFL. Like, I know that a lot of people like to crown the Chiefs as being the class of the NFL, and back-to-back Super Bowl rings will do that for you. So they have the GOAT GM, in my opinion. Like, Veach is better than every other executive. They have Andy Reid, obviously. He's the top 5 all-time head coach, and a quarterback who's potentially on track to be the GOAT. But are they willing to spend? Unfortunately, they have had a reputation this past offseason. Like, there's been a lot of things that have come to light saying that this team is not willing to spend. And they were told that, the Chiefs players were told that in the 2023 summer, so the summer after they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, that they were going to get a new locker room. But Clark Hunt said that they had made it too far in the playoffs for them to be able to, renovate the locker room. And all they got was new chairs. So it just remains to be seen. Like, this is why you have to figure out the football side of things, because it can buy you a lot of leeway. It can buy you a lot of leeway to being cheap. It can buy you a lot of leeway into, culturally employing a lot of players who make very questionable decisions in their day-to-day personal life and are facing a lot of legal consequences. So this is why you have to figure out the football side of things, because once again, I believe that this is an incredibly undesirable team without Andy Reid and without Patrick Mahomes, and it remains to be seen. Once those guys are gone, I think Clark Hunt's true colors are going to show. Woody Johnson. So, unfortunately, he was the owner that pushed so heavily for Aaron Rodgers, and once again, he went 50-50 on MetLife Stadium with John Mara, so we do need to give him some props for that. But again, why no grass? Like, when you have other teams' rosters being wiped every single year at your stadium, I just don't understand why they can't spend some money on some grass. And he cares more about status than on-field product. Like, if you look at a lot of, like, celebrity networking events, Woody Johnson is pretty much always there. He always gets his picture taken with people. I know, didn't he just finish up a political stint being the ambassador to the UK? So I'm pretty sure his brother was actually running the team during that time period. But as far as the football side of things, this team is going nowhere without an innovative offense, because Saleh and Douglas, they know how to build a defense, but offense is still a huge question mark. I don't care that they have Aaron Rodgers. Like, people have been coming at me in my comments all offseason, like, don't you think Aaron Rodgers is an upgrade? Like, I'm not completely sure about this whole thing. Is he an upgrade over Zach Wilson? I mean, probably, but he's a 40-year-old coming off an Achilles injury, and the team is still being coached by Nathaniel Hackett. So that's more of a team that I'm being pretty conservative on my projections for on the offensive side of the ball. But he cares, like I said, I think he cares more about being the owner and having that status and just being like, yeah, I own an NFL team, than he does actually carrying some good on-field product. They've only made the playoffs 6 times since he's become the owner after 23 potential seasons. I know being in Tom Brady's division is not necessarily something that's going to help your case when it comes to that, since they were for 20 years, but still, yeah. Number 23, Josh Harris. Now, disclaimer, I actually don't know a lot about the owner of the 76ers and Devils and Josh Harris, how he is at running those things, but what I will say is that a lot of people have said that he doesn't care about actually having a connection to the team that he runs. He doesn't actually care about, connecting with fans or anything like that. He is just strictly profit-driven, and all right, but it does seem like he's willing to at least make some upgrades. I don't know if the Commanders are going to get a new stadium anytime soon. I do think that they eventually need one, especially because that thing is falling apart. Like, do you remember seeing that video last year of Jalen Hurts almost being crushed by Eagles fans after they crushed the stadium? So I just think that people, if you're a Commanders fan, you're just happy that it's not Dan Snyder. You're just happy that you don't have to deal with your owner. You're just happy that you don't have to deal with your owner being in negative headlines every single week. And they have a new GM, they have a new coach, they have a new quarterback. So let's see. It's just like more of a wait and see thing with the Commanders and Josh Harris. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't know how he is with the Devils and 76ers, but a lot of people say that he's insanely profit driven and he wants to put a quality team on the field, but time will tell. So one thing I will say, I will commend Shad Khan because he genuinely is a true fan. He cares about the people in the city that he's in, but he's just way in over his head when it comes to the football side of things. So like I said, free agency is the Jaguars Invitational. And there's a reason that there's that thing called the Jaguars tax, which is bad teams are just going to have to overspend on free agents because the Jaguars in free agency every year, I don't know where they get all the money, but they've spent $1 billion since, I can't remember when, but over a certain period of time, they have spent over $1 billion in free agency. Now, I will say that they do have some exciting pieces on their roster, like T-Law, ETN, Cisco, Campbell, Josh Allen. Those are all guys that are exciting pieces. I'm sure a few others that I'm blanking on right now, but Trent Baalke is your GM, and I do believe that he's the third worst GM in the entire league, but also, he definitely does not have a .547 winning percentage as the owner. I don't know why I forgot to switch that while I was going through these, but yeah, I do think he's a good owner for the city of Jacksonville, and he's bad for the Jaguars. And don't they share a facility with AEW now? I don't know. So, Mark Davis. Now, I need to give a huge salute to Al Davis because you are one of the best owners ever. And much like Lamar Hunt, much like Pat Bowlen, much like Ralph Wilson, the NFL would definitely not be the same place it is today without all those four amazing gentlemen. But Al Davis, he created something incredible. He created one of the most prominent, one of the greatest, most storied NFL franchises ever. But unfortunately, so Mark Davis, he made a bag, and he did want to keep the Raiders in Oakland, like genuinely. He wasn't averse to, knowing something like that, but I think he really got screwed over by the A's owner just being super duper cheap, and the Coliseum was a total dump. But what I respected about the Coliseum was that it was a relentless place. It was not welcoming to opposing fans like their new stadium is now, and hating the Las Vegas Raiders is like hating a hotel chain. Like, I know that Mark Davis, he has made the Raiders one of the most valuable NFL teams. Like, they went, I think, from like mid-20s when they were in Oakland, even though they were in the Bay Area, to top 8. And Allegiant Stadium has been one of the hottest attractions in Vegas. Like, as somebody who lives here, Allegiant Stadium, it's created a lot of revenue for the city. It's created a lot of revenue for the Raiders in general. Like, I think they made $70 million off of non-Raiders events, and this is due to a number of things. Like, they've had a lot of soccer games there. They've had a lot of concerts. They're getting WrestleMania next year, so that's pretty cool as far as, something, an attraction for the city, because I truly believe it is the best stadium in the NFL. And he does have a reputation of being unfair and cheap. And he is a Raider. Like, I do believe that he bleeds black and silver. But once again, hating the Las Vegas Raiders, this team has no identity. Like, I was able to go to a Raiders game here in Vegas and just wear my Broncos jersey. And everybody was, like, welcoming to me. I was like, you guys aren't going to, like, throw stuff at me. You're not going to haze me. You're not going to heckle me. But once again, I really do not like the fact that he sold so many PSLs, because 60% of those PSLs are in the hands of people that are outside of California and Nevada. So, yeah, I don't like that whatsoever. Now, Stan Kroenke, you can say, I know that a lot of people are going to be like, why is he not like in the bottom 5? You can say whatever you want about Stan Kroenke, and he is a major dick. As I have it in the bottom of this presentation, he is a major dick, but he is the best multi-sport owner in the world, like, objectively. Over the past few years, all of his teams, I mean, besides Arsenal, have won major championships within their respective sports. So I know that he owns more than just Arsenal and the Avalanche and the Nuggets, but he knows that he can just, stay out of what the organization is supposed to do. And he built a stadium using zero tax dollars. And considering, once again, he was in an area of California where they have like unlimited tax money, and they probably would have loved to have thrown it away on a huge football stadium. Kroenke did not need any backing from the state of California, which I thought was pretty sick. Now, he deserves some flack. He deserves a lot of flack for the way he did the city of St. Louis. On the other side of that coin, listen, man, St. Louis, they have no identity when it comes to supporting an NFL team. Like, yes, my grandparents are from St. Louis, and I have a lot of friends from St. Louis, and now pretty much all of them just bandwagon the Chiefs. Like, St. Louis, make no mistake about it, the Rams were never St. Louis's team. Even when they were there, they would always get taken over by opposing fans, and this town supports the Cardinals, it supports the Blues, it supports even the Battlehawks in an incredible way. I do believe St. Louis should have gotten more of a fair shake in Kroenke's efforts to keep the team, but once again, the Edward Jones Dome was a joke. I actually saw the dome catch on fire in 2012. Like, I remember I was sitting in the upper section of the stadium and it caught on fire. So, yeah, that shows how the team was run there. But this team is very competitive, and moving to LA has done something for the league that, I mean, they've made it a lot of money just based off of that. And Stan Kroenke, he's not a guy that's going to want to keep a team just for the sake of, fan support. If he understands that if he has to make a bag, he will make a bag. Sucks for the city of St. Louis, but they did move to LA, and once again, he didn't use any tax money to fund the team, and he's an incredible multi-sport owner. Like, that's just the facts of it. I don't make the rules. So 19, George Halas and McCaskey. So they, for a long time, they've just gotten the wrong people within their organization, and you can, be like, well, yeah, you don't really know how much influence an owner has on an NFL team. Well, that's true, but at the same time, these people were cheap. They weren't really willing to spend up on the best executives or coaches, but they did hire Kevin Warren to eventually just take over the team and be the runner of the team in all their football operations, and he was an absolutely great hire. Now, I don't know how the new stadium thing is going to come about, because Soldier Field is insanely traditional, and I don't know what their plans are for the new stadium. They're probably going to push the government for a lot of tax dollars just to make sure that they can secure a new stadium. But Soldier Field is one of the most classic storied NFL stadiums, so yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic here with the Hallases, because I feel like I should have ranked them a lot higher, but I feel like because of the tradition and what they've carried from the NFL. But at the same time, this team is pretty, for the most part, incompetent. And they have been as far as ownership throughout their storied history in the NFL. Now, like I said, they finally have some hope, but the McCaskeys, I'm pretty sure they're still, hands-on as far as football operations. They didn't let Poles choose, or they gave Poles a list of 3 candidates to choose from, and he chose Eberflus. But a change of CEO took way too long to be made, and ultimately they do have a B+ NFLPA grade, so that does count for something. But yeah, so Joel Glazer with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the only reason he's this low is because they were given a 6.1 NFLPA rating as far as how likely they are to renovate, as far as how likely they are to upgrade everything. And they're adequate owners. They understand that they have bigger fish to fry. They have Manchester United. They have everything to do there. But they're kind of in a retool after the incredible Super Bowl run with Brady, and they're not even that far into a retool, considering they made the playoffs last year and they won the NFC South. But are they willing to spend? I mean, I literally could not find anything about, are they willing to make upgrades to the stadium? Are they willing to spend money so that players can get, the best facilities possible? But yeah, so once again, this is a team that has bigger fish to fry, and you could do a lot worse. I will say that with the Glazer family, you could do a lot worse. And I actually, for a long time, until I started recording this, I actually couldn't find the actual controlling owner, which the controlling owners was, or who was the controlling owner for the Glazer family, but I found out that it was Joe Glazer. So Stephen Ross of the Miami Dolphins. So here's a few things that we have to say about Stephen Ross. I'm willing to give him his flowers on a lot of other things. For example, he upgraded the heck out of Hard Rock Stadium, and it looks nowhere close to the same place that the Dolphins played at for a long time, and the Marlins played at too. They upgraded the heck out of it, and it looks like an entirely new stadium. They didn't need any tax dollars to secure that as well, but he has an A+ NFLPA grade, and I cannot ignore that. I cannot ignore the fact that the Dolphins, along with the Vikings, were graded as one of the 2 best organizations to play for in the NFL. But he has been in hot water for a lot of other things. Like, for example, he got the Dolphins stripped of a first-round pick because of the Sean Payton and Tom Brady tampering thing. He also got named in the Flores lawsuit, and it remains to be seen how much there actually is to the substance of the Flores lawsuit. But once again, A+ NFLPA grade, so I can't ignore that. But unfortunately, they're kind of at a crossroads because this organization is underratedly stable with Chris Greer at the top. They have been through some head coaches throughout his tenure, but I think Tua being a good and not great quarterback will sink this franchise because Mike McDaniel is now one of the NFL's like hottest new coaches. Like, people are just like, wow, Mike McDaniel, he's a genius. And yeah, I agree with that. But unfortunately, Tua is going to absolutely crush this team. And he's better. I don't even know if he's better than Trevor Lawrence because, yes, he's led the NFL in passing yards over the past few years. But we've seen when the weather gets under 70 degrees, it really, really slows the Dolphins down. And Tua has the Dolphins bent over a barrel. He has them bent over a barrel of, oh, you tried to replace me. Oh, Flores was a mega, like, insufferable, insert adjective here, to me throughout my career. You could also be like, okay, yeah, they tried to replace him with Deshaun Watson, not even a year taking him 5th overall. So they do deserve a lot of flack for that. And Ross himself deserves a lot of flack for that. But he deserves his praise with other things too. Now 16. The Benson family. The Bensons have done a lot for the city of New Orleans, and Gail Benson actually said that she wanted to give billions to the city of New Orleans soon because once she dies, she has said that she is going to give all the profit from the sale of the Saints to the city of New Orleans, and that's absolutely fantastic. That's a huge, that's a great gesture that she's doing to give back to the community. So New Orleans, their blood runs deep within the city, and Tom Benson and Gail Benson, they did great things with restoring the Saints as the pride of New Orleans. And when I think about New Orleans, I think of the Saints, first and foremost. But they, as far as football, they are treading water with a mid-head coach and an aging roster. Like Dennis Allen, he's a mid-head coach at best. And all their players are 35, 32. At least the ones that are impact players. I know they have Olave and Lattimore, and those guys are younger. But every single leading presence of this organization, every single player who you consider a focal point to this roster and to this organization, they're all pretty old. I just wish that there was a way that Mickey Loomis could get out of there and they could get someone new in there, because Mickey Loomis, up until the past 2 years, everyone was like, oh, he's a genius, but he needs a strong supported cast. He needs Sean Payton, he needs Drew Brees, he needs Jeff Ireland to be successful. Yeah, he still has Jeff Ireland, but still, I wish they had more organizational accountability for, their shortcomings as far as the past few years. So number 15, Arthur Blank. And as far as the football side of things, underwhelming the past 3 years, but hopefully they just solved the quarterback position. They invested very heavily into it. They gave Kirk Cousins a bag, and they also drafted Michael Penix 8th overall. So that's what watching Desmond Ridder can do to an organization. Unfortunately, I think that Julio and Matt Ryan masked a lot of problems within the team, because Arthur Blank, he's not somebody who's averse to knowing where they need to upgrade. He's building a new facility, and he was the one who fired Arthur Smith this past year, and he fired Dimitrov before that. And Fontenot, I can imagine, is probably on the hot seat after the Falcons have not really been that impressive over the past 3 years, ever since Fontenot has took over as the GM. But regardless, Julio and Matt Ryan, I think that if they did not exist, we'd be talking about Arthur Blank in a huge, very different light. And Arthur Blank, he's somebody who a lot of people have been questioning as to if he lost his passion for the team, if he just cares about the stadium in general, and if he cares about Atlanta United more than anything else, and maybe that's the case. So Terry Pegula. This team is fantastic as far as quarterback, but everywhere else, I think they could do a lot better. You completely blew your window with Josh Allen on a rookie contract. So, yeah, the Pegulas, they also run the Sabres, and I know that a lot of people are not really happy with the way they run that team. But as far as the NFL, like I'm talking strictly NFL when I make these rankings, even though I know that Kroenke being a multi-sport savant did factor into my rankings, but a lot of people do not like the way he runs the Sabres, but I think a new front office and a new head coach philosophy would be the best when it comes to the Buffalo Bills because they keep getting far, but it's not far enough. Like, you have one of the most passionate fan bases in the world in any sport, and now suddenly you are not going to be able to get over the hump until you get some new blood in the building. And I think they need a new GM. I think Brandon Beane, the days of him being good in free agency and the draft are pretty much over. And Sean McDermott, he coaches scared when it comes crunch time. Now, this team has been very, very successful since he took over, but a lot of that is due to the fact that you have Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's been able to, win you a lot of games, as he has been the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. And they want an entirely new stadium funded by public taxes. And once again, I could see the city of New York being like, knock yourself out, kid. So Jim Irsay, he cares about this team. Like, genuinely, he gives back to the community, but he's very questionable as far as football operations. Like, bro, Jeff Saturday, like, bro. There's a large part of people who also believe that he was instrumental in pushing Peyton Manning out to draft Andrew Luck, and every organization would have made that decision, so I can't really fault him for that too. But regardless, he's a little too hands-on, in my opinion. Like, he doesn't really know what he's doing in football operations, which is why I said he's kind of questionable in that. But once again, he gives back to the community. But the Colts, they always have so much money in cap space, and I don't remember the last time a Colts superstar got like a huge like market contract that would come out of Irsay's pocket. So with the organization, really high on Shane Steichen. I'm really high on Anthony Richardson. I'm not really that high on Chris Ballard. I think he's good at evaluating talent, but I don't think he's good at actually building a team and knowing where they need to upgrade and where they need to improve. Once again, I completely forgot to edit the winning percentage that he has as an owner. So Amy Adams-Strunk. What I do love about Amy Adams is her passion for the game, because she is regularly seen at Titans tailgates, and she is regularly seen cheering the team on. Like, she inherited it as her dad was the owner of the Oilers, but when they moved to Tennessee, like, I know a lot of people in Houston were pretty upset about that. Now, they got a team back first and foremost, so they can't be too upset about it, and obviously the Texans now are in a better situation than probably the Oilers ever were. But one thing I will say is that the new stadium will be very expensive for Tennessee. They are not going to do much private funding, so I'm not really happy about that. But with football, I mean, you have Carthen. I do like Callahan as well. Not really a Will Levis believer, but oh well. You finally had your chance to spend and build your roster in a way you saw fit. So, yeah. Now, Art Rooney. I know a lot of you are going to be really, really mad at this ranking because obviously the Rooneys, since they have taken over, they've been known as the class of the NFL. But here's what you need to realize. Art Rooney's legacy is going to be very, very different from Dan Rooney's legacy, or it's going to be a lot different from Art Sr.'s legacy, because this team is not willing to spend at all to upgrade anything, and they have incredible stability. Like, I'm pretty sure they have not fired a coach that has ever. Like, they wait until their contract runs out, and that does come with its downfalls, unfortunately, because the NFL is a what have you done for me lately league. But they're still not really willing to spend to upgrade in multiple departments, and honestly, I think he's just being carried by Mike Tomlin above all else. Like, Art Rooney, yes, he deserves some credit for being a Rooney, and the Steelers organization is one of the greatest franchises of all time as far as historically speaking in the NFL, and they are always competitive no matter who the quarterback is, no matter who the coach is. Like, this team will always go 9-8. Tomlin is going to drag this roster no matter how bad to 9-8. But once again, they're in a very tough division, and unfortunately, I think it's not going to get that much better on the football side of things. So the Broncos and Greg Penner. Now, this is not a guy who you can look at and be like, yeah, he's a true fan of the team. Like, when you have Walmart money and when you have a Walmart backing, like, why not buy the Broncos? That's pretty much their thought process when it comes to buying the team. I think that was what they thought when the Bolins were selling it, because Pat Bolin, let's be honest, one of the best owners ever. The NFL would not be where it was today without him. Like, he negotiated the entire TV contract, the entire NFL's TV contract in the 80s or 90s. And I don't think a lot of people knew about that. So this team, it had been in decline for a while, arguably because the wrong people took over after Pat Bowlen had passed away. Joe Ellis completely derailed the direction of this franchise. And the Bowlen children, like, none of them were competent enough to run the team, so they ended up selling it, and they're going to fight for the money outside of court. And I think that was the best way to do it. Now, they're financial backers rather than football executives, but they're willing to spend the necessary resources to make sure the Broncos are a successful team. They spent a lot in stadium renovations and upgrades just due to the fact that they wanted to. They spent like millions of dollars just to make sure that the playing surface was good for a game that they had, which is why I say that they are willing to spend even for minor inconveniences. And Sean Payton, I'm pretty sure he can just go up to Penner and be like, all right, so here's what we're doing. I'm bringing in David Shaw. I'm bringing in Cody Reagor to help out the football side of things. And the owners are just like, knock yourself out, kid. So Cal McNair, he deserves a lot of credit because Bob McNair kept around a lot of the wrong people, and suddenly they became a model NFL franchise in one offseason. I'm sure that you probably have no idea how many times Cal McNair heard, oh, it's what your dad would have wanted, every single day within the building, keeping around the wrong people. But they've made several upgrades to the stadium, and suddenly the McNairs are very good owners of the Houston Texans. I know that when they were in chaos and turmoil over the past few years, they did not share this sentiment, but McNair has done an amazing job. Cal McNair has done an amazing job running this team, and they've made a lot of upgrades to Energy Stadium, and like I said, they've become a model NFL franchise in one off season. They definitely know how to run the team from the top down. Now, Jody Allen. This is a team that's stuck in a very competitive division, but what are they willing to do to better the Seattle Seahawks to make them one of the premier organizations of the NFL? Well, they've had a lot of stability ever since Paul Allen bought the team and pretty much completely saved the Seahawks in general. They've done a very, very good job at always staying competitive. Schneider has been with the team since 2010. Carroll was with the team since 2011. But they also were willing to spend and make several new upgrades to CenturyLink Field, or it's called Lumen Field now, but I think people still call it CenturyLink. But regardless, the Allens, man, I can't say enough good things as far as how they've rebuilt the Seattle Seahawks and what they saved the team from becoming way back in the day. So 7, we have Jed York, and he started out really, really bad, but he is a true 49ers fan, and here's what he was able to do. He was able to put the team in the hands of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and now, ultimately, they are still one of the best organizations in the NFL, just due to the fact that Jed York can just take his hands out of the equation and be like, all right, John Lynch, Shanahan, you do you. Because it started out with him choosing Balky over Harbaugh, which was probably one of the worst football personnel decisions we've seen in a long time as far as like non-players. But A- NFLPA grade. Incredible roster that just can't get it done. It remains to be seen if Shanahan can finally get it done in the big moment. And are they willing to spend? Yes, but a lot of the 49ers fans aren't happy with the way that the Santa Clara organization has come about. I couldn't even find a lot of public stuff as far as how the money is distributed and how the 49ers get profit and how much profit does the city of Santa Clara get for that. But yeah, so winning cures a lot of things, doesn't it? And I think that's a big theme of this presentation. Sheila Ford Hamp has completely revitalized the Detroit Lions. No longer are you having a 97-year-old woman run this operation. They went from a poverty franchise to being pristine, being a way that people can look at and be like, okay, look at the Lions' quick turnaround. Look at how well they did in turning around their team within just a 2-3 year time period. And are they willing to spend? Yes, but they have work to do. Like, I'm pretty sure they do need a new practice facility, and that's something they're trying to figure out right now. But Sheila Ford, she was one of the ones who hired, I can't remember who the president of the Lions is. I know it's a former player, I want to say. Don't quote me on that, but I do believe it's a former player. And I think one thing a lot of these owners need to realize is that once you have your hands away from the team, and once you can just let the football people do the football things, you finally are going to have success. And that's something that the Lions have built. They've now become Michigan's favorite team, and honestly America's team, because people really got behind the Detroit Lions over these past few years. But yeah, I don't know how nice Ford Field is, but somebody can probably tell me in the comments. So Robert Kraft is on unstable ground after the Bill Belichick and Tom Brady regime, because their fingerprints, or I think I should say that Brady and Belichick's fingerprints are all over the dynasty, but I don't know how much of that has to do with Robert Kraft. But I can't ignore the fact that ever since he took over the team, they've become one of the most successful organizations in the NFL. And this team, they are getting new influxes of talent everywhere. They got a new quarterback this offseason, new head coach, new GM, kind of like the Commanders, except I have more faith in the Patriots' success at the top with Kraft rather than Harris. But yeah, are they willing to spend? I mean, yes. Kraft, we see it every offseason. He makes a lot of upgrades to his team. He's able to make a lot of upgrades to the organization, but they were actually voted on as having the worst weight room in the NFL. But I hope that they can turn that around. But they're on unstable ground without Bill Belichick and Brady, but I will say that he's a great owner. Now for Jerry Jones, you can meme about him, but the reality is he has done so much for the NFL, and a lot of people have called him the shadow commissioner of the NFL. And he's created the Cowboys into a ginormous global brand. Like, you are the most valuable sports team in the world by $2 billion. That's how valuable the Dallas Cowboys are. And he knows how to make a bag, but unfortunately he's just too loyal to certain things. Like, he's too loyal to Mike McCarthy, he was too loyal to Jason Garrett, and unfortunately I don't think he's going to win another Super Bowl anytime soon. And are the Cowboys willing to spend? Yeah, because their top stars are usually paid pretty well. Like, you look at the salary cap for the Cowboys, and on any given year, like the top 5-6 players, you know that they're going to be Cowboys for life. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep Dak Prescott, and unfortunately they probably won't be able to next offseason, but they're an extremely talented team, but they can never make it to the NFC Championship game. But that's on the back of McCarthy. I believe that Dak is a great QB, but he just unfortunately doesn't have the clutch trait. Now 3, Jeff Lurie. Now, he has made the Eagles an incredible global brand. They do everything right, from the marketing to the front office. The Eagles, without looking, I'm pretty sure that they are a top 3 most popular team in the NFL. Like, Eagles fans are absolutely everywhere, make no mistake about it. And there's a lot of good when it comes to this team, and there's a lot of good when it comes to the identity and how they are run, and they do everything right. This is an organization that does every single right, because they employ Howie Roseman, and Howie Roseman is an absolute wizard. The team is always competitive, and they are the 8th most winningest team since he took over. And other than 2020, I can't remember many years where they were just truly bad and had nothing going for them as a team. So are they willing to spend? Yeah, absolutely. He's willing to make upgrades. He's willing to put financing and, just financial backing into the facilities to make sure that the Eagles have everything they need to be successful. And once again, this is a team that is insanely popular throughout the world. Ziggy Wolf. Vikings ownership, I have it at the bottom. They do a really commendable job, and this is due to the fact that they were voted on as one of 2 NFL teams to have an A+ NFLPA grade within their organization. And I think if you give players one of the best stadiums in the league, one of the best new stadiums in the league, as well as probably the best practice facility, then yeah, when the team is voting on, or when players are voting on how you are as an owner, I don't think they're going to need much else rather than that. But the Wolves do a very commendable job, and within the football side of things, they do all right, in my opinion, because they blew multiple shots at making a run, and I do believe that it was time to move on from Spielman and Zimmer sooner rather than later than they actually did. But Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa is great, and the Vikings, they're an insane brand as well. Like, this is a team where people can have zero connections to the Minnesota Vikings, but I truly believe that they're still a top 5 most popular franchise in the NFL. And they're just a team that I'm just like, oh, yeah, you're a Vikings fan. Cool. Are you from Minnesota? Then someone's like, no, just became a fan. And I'm just like, okay. Number 1, Steven Bisciotti. this team is always competitive. They have an incredible GM, head coach, and quarterback. And one thing that really sticks out to me listening to Shadi talk is you just have to listen to his interviews. He's a great person. There's multiple stories of him in the Baltimore community, like doing great things for the team, doing great things for the fans. Like, I remember he was at a fan meetup and he talked to every single fan until the meetup was over. And I'm sure that a lot of other owners on this list have done more of the same. But yeah, he gets it. Not only does he get that he needs to be like hands off within the football side of things, but when he is hands on within the football side of things, they can never make a wrong move. They're a great organization. They're a model organization as far as developing players. You know, they have that whole mantra of play like a Raven, and it remains true. It remains incredibly factual, and it's not something like some fraudulent culture like their rivals, the Steeler way. Like, I'm sorry, Pittsburgh fans, don't get mad at me, but Harbaugh's been with the team since 2008, and then Eric DeCosta took over and has become one of the best GMs in the NFL, along with Lamar Jackson being one of the best QBs in the NFL. So yeah, that does it for me.